Welcome to Coffee and Cybersecurity with Cyberpilot. Today I'm joined by Benjamin, who is our product owner on our phishing service. So you know a lot about phishing training and how to phish people in companies.
Thank you.
And it's your second time on this podcast. The first time you were here to talk about why phishing is dangerous and what can actually happen if you get phished. Today we're going to talk about how you can spot a phishing email, because we've tried to summarize some of the tells that could be in a phishing email, and you would like to share those with us today?
I would, yes.
And these tells or hints, or what we could call them, are different things you and your colleagues can look out for when you receive a phishing email. So it's kind of an analytical framework when you see a new email. We are not going to talk about the technical tells, which could be a sender domain or the link in the email, all the usual suspects. We're going to talk about more of the content in the emails itself.
Yes.
Was that a good introduction?
That's a great introduction. Thank you. And I'm happy to be back as well, talking to you and sharing some thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
So before we jump into the 8 tells, then could you maybe put a few words on why they are important to know?
Yeah, put pretty simply, we have a lot of experience now training our customers in spotting phishing emails, and of course we also do a lot of research into what it is that criminals use to scam our customers in the end. And so we've gathered these tells that you can use to spot these phishing emails. And we've gathered them together and found that these are the most common that we see, and we know that these are very important to train.
We could also say that there are more than 8 tells, of course, but these are the most common ones. It's basically different social engineering tactics. So it's different kind of psychological ways to trigger people to click something. And of course, there's more than 8, but if you have these 8 covered, then you are pretty strong in your defense, at least.
Yes.
Yes.
And we would say it's a good foundation to have to know these 8 signs. And we also know that when we see these phishing attacks, there will often be more than one sign in an attack, but looking into each of them makes us better to analyze these phishing attacks.
Yeah. So there can be more than one tell in an email.
There can, yeah.
But let's jump into them then.
Yes.
The first one is rewards. It might sound a little bit self-explanatory. So it's if you get a prize or something that triggers that you get happy. So you want to see what is it that I've won. I think we've all tried to get the email that you won a new iPhone. Click here to get it, or something like that. And is it that simple, basically?
Yeah. So you can say it is pretty straightforward. A reward is something that makes us happy, and we like rewards. We like a bonus. We like a gift. We like something in that nature. And this is something where we let down our guard because we want this, and we want this to be true. So we lay down our guard, and this is what the criminal hopes that we will do. And so the tell is often that it's too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
But how it affects us is that we want it. So this is something we need to train.
Yeah, and I guess the iPhone is kind of obvious maybe because I didn't sign up for any competition, but it can also be in smaller margins.
Exactly. And the ones that we've heard about are you've won an iPhone, you've won something else, and of course you probably haven't. The ones that are harder to detect are some that may be true, and where the timing or the context is better suited.
Yeah.
But it's the whole range, from an iPhone to anything you can imagine that you want.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess that goes for all of these tells, that they can be really obvious and they can be really disguised.
Yes.
But they still trigger you somehow.
Yes.
The second one is, we've called it "do the right thing." Maybe you can explain that one.
Yeah. So yeah, we've called it "do the right thing," and it's a quite basic urge that hopefully many of us do have, where we would like to help maybe a colleague. We would like to uh, impress maybe our boss, or we would like to impress someone by doing something that is maybe morally or uh, societally right. So helping out in a good cause, it could be helping some refugees, doing something, getting food or water or something like this. It could also be a big thing that's up now is like ESG initiatives and things like that. So stepping in and doing your part.
Yeah.
That's doing the right thing. And we see that especially with crises, like stuff that's going on in the Middle East or Ukraine or Russia, like this, there are many opportunities to support and help and do the right thing and be a good person. And this is something that's misused by criminals.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it can also be really small things, like if they spoof a colleague, then it could be, "Can you help me download this? My computer doesn't seem to work. Can you download this?" or something like that.
Absolutely.
If
Absolutely.
you want to take it away from the big crises down to something really everyday, like.
Yeah, and you're completely correct. And we also see it, like, let's say someone writes you and says, "Hey, I've noticed that you work at Cyberpilot. It sounds really interesting what you're doing, and I am in the market to look for a job, but I would like to hear more about what you do. Maybe Anas, in your position.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if I sent my resume to you and you had a look or something like that?" And it sounds pretty innocent, and sounds also plausible. But you being a good guy, you might think, yeah, why not?
Yes.
So this would be an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The third one.
Yes.
We've called that curiosity. So I guess that's also little bit self-explanatory. Now it's about triggering our curiosity for something. So are we curious of X? Then we want to click this. And I think the obvious example is, we all know the clickbait articles or the clickbait YouTube videos. And these titles that we see, they all play on this.
That's correct. And we are just naturally curious. And again, being curious and the urge to investigate what is behind whatever this is can again blindside us towards the dangers with it. And you mentioned these clickbaity articles, videos, podcasts, whatever, where you really hide the point. And this we know just from statistics in marketing. I guess you also know this, that putting in some clickbait is just great for click-through rates, or people want to know what it is. They want to get an answer to this, and this is also a sign that we need to train on, because it is prevalent out there.
Yeah, so I guess you could almost say that if they could have the information in the email itself, instead of having you click to get the information, then there's a good chance that they're using this trick. Like, if it could have been an email in itself,
then
why should you click?
Yeah, why should you click and
Yeah.
download something or log in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next one we've called media. And that one is maybe a little bit harder to explain, but maybe you can give it a go.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So really, it's quite simple. Well, imagine the criminal is looking in at your organization and where you are, and they might have been able to understand some of the things that you're talking about. So maybe being able to craft a relevant message to one or more of the employees in the organization. But what they might not know is which channels do you use to communicate various messages or requests. So they they might use an email to send out to some of you guys saying, "Hey, there's some update to our HR policies," or something like this, where the criminal will not know that this is something that's always presented on, let's say, an all hands meeting, or it's always written out in a Teams or Slack communication channel. So being aware of the channels that are used for the message is a good skill to have, and a good tell that it might be a bit off.
Yeah. So it's basically if the message fit the media it's sent in.
Yep.
Yeah. So it could also be if your bank writes you an email, you'll be like, would they do that normally or would they use another channel?
Yes.
Always have that question.
Yeah. Would they? Yeah. Exactly. Would the police call you on your phone? All these things. Yeah.
Yes. That leads us to the next one, which is fear. And I guess that one is also a common one, and I think we all kind of experienced that somehow in some of the more common known phishing emails throughout the times. So it could be fear of anything. It could be fear of missing out. It could be your bank account is compromised. You have to log in to block out the hackers or something like that.
Yeah. So fear, we know, is a strong driver and something just like rewards, but kind of the opposite. It's something that makes us shift our attention. So if we become afraid, and again, it could be afraid of all kinds of things, afraid of missing out, afraid of being scolded by a boss, a colleague, or a partner, or something like this, afraid of losing access to something.
Yeah.
All these things can blindside us to what's really going on.
Yeah, so I guess it also often goes hand in hand with curiosity, because if we take like the clickbait headlines again, it's often fear and curiosity. Like, you have to avoid these 5 things or else, and then that's a mixture between fear and curiosity.
Yeah.
Curious of what is it I'm missing, I have to avoid, but it's also fear that something will go wrong.
And yeah, we often see with fear, it's something like you said with curiosity, where it's a little bit opaque or vague what it is, because the criminal probably won't know that many details.
Yeah.
So you have that curiosity element, but at the same time, they might write something with huge consequences. So and this is what grabs your attention.
The 6th one is context. And maybe you will give it a go with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So context is basically looking at the message and how it fits into, well, context can be quite a few things. It can be timing. Does it fit into the time? Should this message come now? Does it fit into what we're talking about in the workplace in general? Does it fit into should I be receiving this? Am I the correct recipient of this? Imagine that you get a bill from, it could be AWS or something like this, and you think they do something with servers or something like that, and you may sit in marketing and think, Yeah, we do use some servers, but am I normally the person that should be receiving this kind of information? You might think, yeah, we do use some AWS services, but is it me? Is this correct? So thinking about, does this message fit into your personal context, but of course also the organizational context?
Yeah. And I guess it goes again, it can be scaled up and down. So a broad context could be it's Black Friday this Friday. They do something about that. Or it could be all the way down to this Friday's Christmas party at the company or something.
Correct. Yeah, we often say with context it can have a micro or macro context that it's speaking into, and we would often say that if it ticks all the boxes for context, yes, it fits into the big macro context. It fits into the organizational context, and it fits my context. Then it's probably correct. That's how our brains work.
Yeah.
But if there's something that's off there, then there's probably something off.
That leads us to the number 7. That's trust/authority. And I guess this is something that most people who have been touching upon the topics of phishing also know a little bit about, because this is about when the email or the message is from something with authority or something with trust. That means that we want to follow it because we should.
Yeah, so trust slash authority. So what we often see criminals do is either impersonate or look like someone who has authority over someone else, or is in a trusting relationship with someone else, and that they somehow use this. Either it could be by looking very similar to this person or this authority, or actually getting access to, let's say, their email account and writing as them.
Yeah.
We often see this in CEO fraud, as I think you also mentioned, where maybe the CEO's email is hacked, and that the CEO is writing out to employees about things from, please buy a bunch of gift cards for some event or something like that. This is something that's a very, very, very big problem. This is something to be very aware of.
Yeah, and I think it's also something that's commonly used by hackers, because I think we all received an email about GLS have a package ready for you, or UPS or your bank again. And they all play into this trust relationship that GLS is sending us packages. So if they get the timing right, the context right, just one time, you will think, okay, I have a GLS packet coming.
Oh, yes.
And then there's some issues.
Then there's trouble. And they, yeah, exactly. And I think we all have received these messages probably, but we might also know people that have fallen for these. I do, definitely. And what the criminal is using is when we trust someone or see someone in authority that we believe is an authority in our eyes, then we again lay down our defenses and think, yes, that's fine.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the last one, which is time sensitivity or urgency. We could also call it that.
Time sensitivity is something that is used a lot in scams. I mean, you can think of multiple scenarios, but hurry up and do this, and then something good will happen, or hurry up and do this to avoid something bad happening. But the point is, hurry up and do something. So we would see that, you have a very important file that will be deleted within 8 hours or 24 hours or something if you do not take action. Or be the first to win something, or sign up quickly and you will get or receive something. And again, this time sensitivity, if we buy into it, it's kind of like the fear slash rewards thing also, that we will become blindsided. So we will think about the practicalities of hurrying up rather than what we should be thinking about. Again, this is a tell. So when we see that we're supposed to hurry up, this is the good time to not hurry up.
We're also all getting used to this one, so that can also make it harder because, again, people like in marketing also use these kind of tricks. We've all tried to book tickets or something, and then you have 15 minutes to complete your order, or you lose your tickets.
Right.
So we're all used to these kind of urgency triggers that does work because you do get a little bit stressed and have to hurry up.
Yep.
And that can often become more important than, do I actually do this correct?
Yeah, so many of the signs that we talked about today are like under the umbrella social engineering, and it is basically to get people to do something that they normally would not have maybe done in general or done now. In principle, there's nothing wrong with social engineering. I mean, this is something to get someone to do something, and it might also be for good. But of course, since we're talking on the podcast, it's about people using it for bad things.
And yeah, that was it, actually.
Okay.
So that's the 8 tells. And again, as you mentioned, I think it's a good thing to say that these kind of triggers are not necessarily bad. Rewards can be good things. Urgency can also be important. But when it comes to phishing, it can also be tells that this is a phishing email. But it should raise a flag with you or your colleagues if some of these methods are in there, at least.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Do you have any last tips or thoughts that you think people should?
Yeah, I think if you know these 8 signs, and really, as you've heard, they're not super complex, but if you know them and maybe start thinking about them when you open an email, and you just start running through these, is there a time element? Is there a time sensitivity element? Is there fear element? Is this the right media? Is this the right context? The 8 signs we've talked about. If you start internalizing these, you also like have this. I think you mentioned there's an analytical framework for just running through communication to spot if something is off. So I would say bring that with you as a email user in general when you read and interact with communication channels and emails especially.
I think that's a good tip to have, because I think the first thing you learn is check the link. Does that look fishy? Check the sender domain or the IP address. Does that look fishy? But if those things look legit, then these are the things you have to look for to see, okay, but is it then? This is like the next layer, the next level of analytical tools.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then thank you for coming on to the podcast, Benjamin.
Thank you for having me on.
And thank you for listening out there. Hope you enjoyed it.